piece is called System Number 30, and it's part of a kind of long series of works that I've been making. So the word system implies a kind of method or a way of doing something, and I suppose this kind of sense of order as well. So with this piece, I'm using all these elements that are kind of they've been used in the past for another function. And I'm kind of appropriating them and putting them into my sculpture. But it seems actually quite appropriate that we're sitting out here in the yard, because this is the kind of the inspiration for it. It's this sort of kind of you have areas in here that are almost like kind of sort of graveyard of scrap. Of all these different pieces that once had a function and now they're useless. And I'm trying to kind of give those pieces a function again. The other inspiration with the work was the site and this idea of making a work that's intended to go on water, and so I was kind of interested in how I could relate these kind of functional scrap items and kind of join them together with the Parklands landscape and with specifically the canal. So I kind of came up with this idea of making a form that appears to bounce across the water. So it's like a kind of frozen moment in time where you've got this tracer of a line that follows this shape, following it behind it in the canal as it sort of bounces across the surface. And the shape kind of came from that idea of wanting to make something that looked like it was moving, and I felt that sort of discus form would lend itself really well to that, to the kind of whole sense of trying to give the piece an energy and the movement to it. I think generally in my work I have an interest in, I suppose, the semiotics of material. So what that material is actually saying and what its purpose is. And here I'm interested in steel being used as a kind of integral part in the peat cutting machinery. And also at the same time, it's a kind of, with this work, it's a sort of, I suppose, a sort of archaeology as well, because I'm sort of finding these pieces and maybe chatting to the guys about what that might have done once. Fairly early on, as soon as I kind of got on the flight over here, I suddenly realised that I wanted to change the tail section of the piece, and we needed to roll these sections of box iron. And they found this, they had this roller dated 1961 somewhere in a shed way over there, and kind of brought it out and got someone to repair it and get it working. So it kind of feels like anything's possible. You can kind of keep, you can have an idea here and just, So I suppose this place won't be here forever, and the peat's running out, and you have these great big workshops that were really, really a sort of busy place once. And you still got, there's still machines being repaired, and there's things being made. But for me, I think what's so incredible about this place is that there's, in these buildings, they make everything. So, and particularly, I suppose, when you're kind of making these big peat cutting machines, when they were being made, every part would be made of that. So I think there's a kind of real sense of kind of excellence here in engineering, which you don't really get elsewhere. Hopefully with time nostalgia will come into it, and so with the kind of disc section of the piece, that's made up of all these objects that are kind of seen as to be maybe a lot of rubbish now, and maybe in a few years' time they'll have kind of history to them, and they'll have a greater importance after time. So that spring or that sprocket will actually be a part of this kind of be a part of the history of the place, and kind of almost freeze that that industrial kind of heritage and seal it there. But in terms of the sort of longevity of the work, I hope the work stays up and lasts, but also I'm kind of interested in it. It'll rust, and it'll change colour, and work. Sculptures kind of have their own life, and I think once I make a piece and it's sort of mine at the moment, and then when it goes out into the world, and when it's sighted, then it's like I'm kind of giving it over to people. So for it to kind of mature and for people's kind of perception of it to change, and I think it's something you can't really predict, but it's definitely part of the process. I make it, and then it's given over, I suppose.